boys, some as young as 12 years, are believed to be members of a gang called Superpower Boys.
Hello viewers and welcome to the channel. Today, we'll be discussing the atrocities of the Superpower gang of Eastleigh and the role of Officer Ahmed Rashid in restoring peace and tranquility in the area during Superpower's reign of terror. Eastleigh is located to the east of the Nairobi Central Business District. It is an all-round neighborhood, hosting one of the largest ethnic Somali communities outside Somalia, hence the nickname Little Mogadishu, and it's well known for its business prowess. Well, with that said, let's dig into a tragedy that befell Eastleigh over the past decade, and that is the emergence of the notorious criminal gang known as the Superpower. The Superpower gang is said to have been established by young men, mainly who had been deported from the United States, the United Kingdom and other Western countries, due to crimes such as drug use and trafficking.
They came here from diaspora. They were in Western countries, but they were brought back either to the country or in Somalia.
What brought the young men together was the common factor of addiction to hard drugs such as cocaine, heroin, opium and more. The young men would meet at popular joints where they could access the illegal substances, but it was just a matter of time and the young men would realize that they needed more money to facilitate their addiction, and that is how the Superpower gang came to be, as most of the addicts turned into crime. The Superpower gang initially started as a vigilante group as businessmen in Eastleigh hired the young men for protection, intimidation, and elimination of competition from rival business owners. However, the businessmen would soon disassociate themselves with the Superpower gang as it slowly graduated into a seemingly terrorist group, and also due to the fact that with increased terror attacks in the area, the Kenyan security agencies sought to establish financial links between businessmen and terrorists. The businessmen therefore cut communications with the gang, leaving the gang members to their own devices. Broke and desperate, the young men organized themselves into the criminal gang we know today. The Superpower gang, which by then comprised of only about 15 members, 2 of them being females, resulted to terrorizing citizens of Eastleigh and surrounding areas. In 2016, the gang was listed by Kenyan security agencies as among the top 3 most dangerous gangs in Nairobi and Kenya as a whole, as it was linked to murders, muggings, pickpocketing, and violent robberies, which often included stabbing the victims. In a sitting with a journalist, the Superpower gang's leader of the time, only identified as Jamal, who was 23 years old by the time, was able to highlight how the gang undertook its operations. The group had rented a single room in Eastleigh, which was used as a meeting point to share the stolen valuables as they planned their next hit. It was also used as a resting place for the gang members. The Superpower gang mostly operated at night, but sometimes during the day. Initially, the gang members would only be armed with knives and machetes, but later purchased some firearms. The initial targets were individuals whom they would rob cash, jewelry, mobile phones and other valuables. They would later graduate to more serious crimes like hitting malls and other businesses. Jamal was able to disclose to the journalist that the Superpower gang undertook its criminal activities with no regard for the law, as the gang had support of some local police officers. They would bribe the cops patrolling the streets for them to turn a blind eye to their criminal activities. These allegations can be confirmed by the numerous cases of rogue police officers from Eastleigh that have surfaced on social media.
Eastleigh residents are demanding for justice after a businessman was allegedly shot and a resident physically assaulted by police officers after they refused to give a bribe. That's last week. This is the aftermath of the pictures coming out. This is the aftermath of that confrontation between the police and the businessman. There has been public outrage. The family insists that their kin was murdered by a police officer as he was last seen when he was being arrested. They are now calling on authorities to investigate and bring the perpetrators to book. Ramadan, a Form 2 student, went missing only for his body to be discovered in an open field.
These officers from the Kayole Police Division were on an operation, not to catch any wrongdoers, but on a robbery mission in Nairobi's Eastleigh estate.
On the 21st of October in 2014 at around 9 p.m, a CCTV footage in the 4th Street of Eastleigh captured a superpower gang-involved incident, revealing ways the gangsters used to terrorize the citizens in Eastleigh. In this incident, the unsuspecting victim was standing on the sidewalk, seemingly going through his phone, not knowing he was the target of a dangerous gang. The gangsters, who were lurking in the streets disguised as passers-by, had already started surrounding the victim, and since the gang's activities were not new to the residents of Eastleigh, an alert man was captured waving at the unsuspecting victim as he passed by, supposedly in a move to warn him that the act of displaying his expensive phone in plain sight at night could be dangerous. Moments later, the gangsters, who had initially disguised themselves as normal passers-by, ambushed the victim and snatched his phone. In a retaliatory move, the victim tried to chase down the gangsters to retrieve his property, but they would end up pulling out a knife and stabbing him in the back, forcing him to tussle and flee for his safety. By this time, curious citizens who were around the scene had started intercepting the gangsters, but some police officers who were patrolling the area would fire at the crowd, injuring an innocent civilian. Residents believed the police intentionally did this to help the gangsters get away. Days later, angry residents of Eastleigh would take to the streets to protest against bad policing, as it was apparent to them that a good number of police officers in the area were just a bunch of criminals in uniform. The angry residents sought to take matters into their own hands if the then Inspector General of Police David Kimayo would not step in and change the state of security in Eastleigh. Another frustrating fact for the residents of Eastleigh and the few police officers who did their job right was that most of the superpower gang members came from super rich families, most of their parents being successful and wealthy business owners, both inside and outside the country. The gangsters' parents would post bills of up to 1 million Kenyan shillings to escape their sons' incarceration once they were arraigned in court for their crimes. This allowed the gangsters back to the streets, where they would continue to terrorize citizens.
Each of the suspects was released on a cash bail ranging between 1 million and 500,000 shillings, with their cases to be heard on August 12th.
By this time, the superpower gang members had increased at an alarming rate. This was confirmed by the fact that the police could arrest up to 200 gang members in a single raid. But as usual, the gangsters would always get away with their evil acts due to the help of their wealthy families. This was discouraging to the good police officers who were determined to wipe the criminals off the streets. Most of the gangsters were almost assured that the law had nothing on them. This explained the chilling degree of guts they had, as they even carelessly displayed their arrogance in public. They had no regard for the rule of law or the court system either. In March of 2016, a Nairobi court was left speechless after 2 members of the superpower gang threatened to murder a city MCA. The gangsters allegedly used hand signs that seemingly indicated that they would slash the MCA's neck as they were being led to the cells. The suspects, who were identified as Abshir Yassin and Abdi Fatah Abdullahi, had been arraigned in court to face robbery with violence among other charges. The two had been arrested after being cornered by angry citizens following a broad daylight robbery on the 13th of March the same year. Residents of Eastleigh were on the edge of losing hope as the gang expanded and crime became a new norm that hit close to almost every home, and also because of the fact that cases of the police officers they entrusted to safeguard the law going rogue skyrocketed and became out of control. The public outcry is what prompted the then police boss Japhet Koome to form a special police task force to restore law and order in Eastleigh and its environs. The task force was dubbed the Pangani Six. Its leader, one officer Ahmed Rashid. Rashid shot to limelight in March of 2017 when a cell phone video of him publicly executing 2 unarmed young men in cold blood surfaced on the internet.
Images of a young man sandwiched between 2 armed men in the middle of a crowded street surfaced on social media Saturday morning. The video footage, 1 minute and 8 seconds long, shows another young man lying dead steps away. The person recording the video via phone seems shaken by the turn of events, and their hands shake more than once when the young man who is arguing with the armed gentleman is shot in the stomach and forced to lie flat on the ground. When the camera gets the view of what's happening across the street one more time, the young man, still alive, tries to raise his head, and the man in red gets another firearm and goes back to finish the job. Then the images go black.
In case it is true that what we have seen in social media actually happened, then it would be very unfortunate. We are going to have a probe on these allegations that have come out.
While life returned to normal Saturday on the busy streets of First Avenue, Eastleigh, near the famous Garissa Lodge shopping complex, traces of killings that happened here were still evident on the tarmac.
The two young men killed by Rashid were identified as Jamal Mohammed and Mohammed Dahir Keri. They were executed on allegations of being part of the notorious superpower gang. Just days before the execution, one of the two young men had posted his photo on social media, wearing a police jacket believed to be that of an officer they had killed at a crime scene after he intercepted a robbery. The slaying of the two unarmed young men is what resulted in Officer Rashid being dubbed the killer cop, as the case became the most controversial officer-involved shooting in Kenya. Human rights organizations across the world accused the state of running an execution squad. Truly, if you could ask Rashid, forgiving terrorists was solely left to God, but fixing an appointment between them and the Maker was his call. He became loved and hated in equal measures. Most residents and businessmen of Eastleigh praised him as he was their last hope to restore peace in the area. Moreover, Rashid became a nightmare for the criminals because of the decisive way he dealt with them. He would open fire at the gangsters at the slightest provocation, and those who were lucky enough to be arrested by him would need a huge sum of money to buy their freedom. During the reign of Officer Rashid's task force, cases of suspected superpower gang members mysteriously dying and disappearing became rampant. One woman who narrated her story claimed that she one day woke up to news on social media that her son had been arrested. The parents were asked to pay the bail money to have their son released from custody, only for him to call them the next morning complaining of high fever, fatigue, and loss of muscle control, symptoms the family associated with poisoning. The parents, concerned about their son's state of health, rushed to see him, but upon arrival, they were informed that their son had passed away and his body was in the morgue. As devoted Muslims, the parents rejected an autopsy on the deceased. His cause of death might just never be known. These cases have greatly affected families living in informal settlements. In May of 2017, the community organization documented police killings of 57 men and women allegedly for links to crime in Mathare alone in 1 year. Until now, dozens of cases have been filed for Rashid's alleged misconduct and misuse of power. Mothers who lost their sons in the hands of Rashid and his task force have united to fight for justice. Moreover, the United States 2022 country reports on human rights practices on Kenya included some concerning facts. The report points out that impunity at all levels of the government continues to be a serious problem in Kenya. The Governmental Independent Policing Oversight Authority, established to provide civilian oversight of police, investigated numerous cases of misconduct. The government took limited and uneven steps to address cases of alleged unlawful killings by security force members. Although the Independent Policing Oversight continued to refer cases of police misconduct to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions for prosecution. Despite many reports and investigations of alleged corruption, few cases resulted in prosecutions. The report further indicated that Nairobi police officer Ahmed Rashid remained on duty despite a video of him shooting and killing two unarmed civilians, Jamal Mohammed and Mohammed Dahir Keri, in 2017. In a BBC News Africa documentary, Officer Rashid declared that he had to get the gangsters, whether dead or alive. Human rights across the globe continued pushing for Rashid's prosecution on claims the officer did not operate within the law, mainly referring to the 31st of March 2017 incident. The Independent Medical Legal Unit, a human rights group, expressed its dissatisfaction over the delay by the courts to prosecute Rashid over the murders. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority will charge Rashid with murder in 2023, 5 years after the incident took place. On the 17th of April 2023, Rashid appeared in court and was released on a cash bail of 200,000 Kenyan shillings after denying all charges leveled against him. Residents and businessmen of Eastleigh took to the streets to protest against Rashid's prosecution, describing him as the hero who restored peace in the area. Rashid's case is still ongoing. However, insecurity is on the rise in Eastleigh since he was relieved of his duties as a police officer. More so, Rashid's prosecution would not see an end to cold-blood execution of criminals by the police, as on 18th March of 2022, the Pangani Police Department was on the spotlight yet again.
On Thursday night, a group of police officers branded the Pangani 6, which has been accused by various human rights groups of being behind a spate of extrajudicial killings of suspects in the slums of Eastlands, Nairobi, arrested 2 suspected criminals that they claimed were part of a gang that had robbed a woman of her phone and earrings worth 100,000 shillings. Instead of taking them into custody as required by law, they made them lie down on the road before they pumped bullets into their bodies. But a police report by the officers about the incident says the opposite. In the report seen by NTV, the officers told their superiors at Vigilance House that about midnight, they challenged the suspected criminals to surrender, but they refused and shot at them, prompting a shootout. A serious shootout ensued, and the officers managed to kill 2 robbers. But the cell phone footage tells a different story. The video shows the 2 suspected robbers lying on the ground next to a white Toyota Probox, surrounded by several officers. One of the officers then moves a short distance from the suspected thugs before firing 2 shots, killing both of them on the spot. When asked, police spokesperson Bruno Shioso has told the Daily Nation that he was aware of the incident and recited the same script as that shared by the Pangani Police Division. What is unclear even from Shioso's explanation is why and how robbers who had been reported to have stolen from the Pangani area minutes earlier were spotted along Thika Road and gunned down just behind the Pangani police station. In a press statement this evening, IPOA chairperson Anne Makori has announced that they have commenced investigations into the execution. The blurry cell phone footage, which has gone viral, has attracted condemnation from Kenyans after it emerged that the accused officers belong to the infamous Pangani 6, whose leader, Ahmed Rashid, was caught on camera in 2017 executing a suspect who had surrendered in Eastleigh. Sergeant Ahmed Rashid, who is loved and hated in equal measure, leads a crack team that is responsible for dealing with armed gangs in the larger Eastleigh, Mathare and Pangani. In 2017, he executed 2 teenagers who were suspected criminals in cold blood outside a shopping mall in Eastleigh, creating an uproar. Human rights bodies have used his continued stay in the service as an admission that the state is running an execution squad. Brian Obuya, NTV.